Hello all. Thank you all for being here today. As you can see, we are going live again on Facebook. At some point, I might ask you guys to do a watch party or like our page, whether on Instagram or here, or invite people to watch what we're doing here. We will save this so you can watch the video later, and I really, really appreciate you guys interacting with us on this level. Obviously, we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 corona fear factors that everybody's putting out there. And one of the things that I notice is that we're all in this together. And I have, myself, I always go outdoors. I like to be outdoors. Went for an 18-mile bike ride the other day. And what was really nice to see, what I'm really getting a nice sense of is families connecting. I think if anything, we got to look at the silver linings of what's coming from this. People are spending more time together. They're spending more time with their family, and they're trying to be creative in the way they're spending times together. And this is what that I think we lack a lot of, is that communication. And even though we're further apart, we can still be close together and in contact. And from this chaos that is out there, we have to make some sort of sense, but on the other side of that, there's going to be some order that comes from it. And I appreciate everybody's stance on it. I appreciate everybody and the conversations we have. But all I ask is you be open-minded, because health comes from within. And ultimately, if we can take care of ourselves, we can stay healthier, and we can resist a lot of the things that come up in the world, and our bodies will function at a better level. There are a lot of people out there that are, there's a lot of fear going on out there, and I just want to be sort of an information standpoint of hope. My hope and prayer is that you take this information and you do something with it. We can't just sit around and expect to stay healthy. We can't just sit around and expect the government to take care of us. We can't just sit around and wait to see what happens in the world. We have to become active in whatever way it is. And in this way, virtually, we can do that. And when all of this sort of blows over, then we can be out and in contact with each other. Having said that, I've been reading a lot and listening to a lot of different people, trying to find out who they are, where they come from, are they valid people? Because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information out there, information that's been restricted from certain social pages, that you find the information. Why is this restricted? It should be open to everybody. We should be able to expose the information and let people make choices and decide. Are we endangering others? Not if that person is abiding but what they feel is right. If someone feels they need to stay indoors, then so be it. If they feel they need to wear a mask, so be it. But my being out and being able to talk to you about this is not endangering anybody else who's choosing otherwise. And I want people to understand that stance, because I've been reading a lot. And, people were saying, oh, the death toll went up a lot on, the 15th or so. I don't remember what day it was. But on that day or that specific week, the CDC changed the way that they were going to report deaths. And, now there is, a lot of things going out there, and the requirement is very little to put it on a death certificate. If someone has symptoms, they don't need to test for it. They don't need to test for it. They don't need to be positive. They can just put that it was the coronavirus. That skews the numbers a bit. It skews the numbers a bit, and you have to be realistic, because that's not science. Why are they just putting people down? And someone can pass away and may have had COVID-19 or coronavirus, but that wasn't what killed them. So we really, really have to think about what we're doing. And fear depresses the immune function. There's many studies that show that. And being in panic and hiding and lack of motion, lack of movement is not going to help the situation at all. And that's why today what we're going to be talking about is healthy outdoor living. I had this conversation, and I'm sort of confused about this. A few golfers that come through the office, and I don't understand why golf courses are closed specifically, because you're outdoors and you're golfing and you can maintain your distance. To me, please do so. I would like to understand it. It's not that I'm doubting what they're doing or saying is right or wrong. I want an understanding, okay? And we should be able to have conversation about this without having to worry too much about those things. So let's look into what outdoor living can hold for us. So the relationship between outdoor activity and health in older adults using a GPS type, using a GPS. Regular physical activities provide extensive health benefits in adults, okay, including reduced risk of depressive illness. So this is an important aspect, especially now to understand. Cognitive impairment. Okay, cognitive impairment. So if you have someone that's sitting around, has dementia, the best thing to do is try to get them up and move them around, although they might not want to do it, but if you can, that'd be great. And functional limitations, that makes sense. A lot of people come in here because of functional limitations, knee pains, back pains, neck pains, things of that nature. But if you're moving around a lot more, you're going to be able to help avoid those things. Walking for 30 minutes or more a day is widely recommended as a way to meet the physical activity guidelines. So how many of us were doing that before? How many of us were doing that prior to coronavirus? That's the big thing now. That's what I saw. I went on the Northern Rail Trail here. It starts in Boscawen and goes up to I think to Lebanon. It goes up to Lebanon. It goes up that way. It's 56 miles, and it's really nice. It's fairly flat. It's not really hilly. It was a nice bicycle ride for me to get out and get my activity in. I'm starting to get back into my cycling, and it really was nice to see. I actually saw families, 3 or 4 kids and a mother and father, families with babies and dogs and many more people out than I have seen in a long time. And that's really important. I mean, it's so important because I used to go ride that rail trail and I didn't used to see that. I would see 1 or 2 people, but this time I saw more. Not so crowded that it was like there were so many people that you were overwhelmed and you couldn't keep distance. But, in riding, 18 miles, I saw, 10 times the people I used to see, and over a 9 mile or 7.5 miles of road, 7.5 miles of road, 100 people is not a lot of people. But before I used to say maybe 10. So it's really important to understand that people are getting out and, the common bond, we can be together with our families. We should be getting out and we should be doing those things because it's healthy for us. So why is that important? The relationship between outdoor activity and health in older adults. So this will also, you'll see I'll have some studies and things in regards to younger children also. A growing body of research suggests that exposure to nature and time outdoors also provides health benefits, particularly for mental health. Mental health and an improved sense of well-being. So let me ask you a question. If you have better mental health, an improved sense of well-being, you have a better immune function or a worse immune function? It's pretty common sense. You have a better immune function. It's better than sitting around and watching the news and watching counter numbers fall, okay? And that those numbers don't even match to how many flu deaths there were back in 2017. So you have to understand that. I mean, in 2017, the CDC and the WHO together estimated there was in the vicinity of between 290,000 to 690,000, or somewhere estimates of those numbers, deaths from the flu in 2017. So these pandemic type numbers, these numbers are not new to us, and recently not new to us. But back then, when all those people were passing away, and that's throughout the world, in the United States, there was about 54,000. Okay, and they're saying that's more now. But now, what are they counting as deaths? So are those numbers skewed or not? You have to look at all these things and really, really dig deep into these things. And if you think about it, they weren't closing down economies. They weren't closing down people's lives. And if you have people in fear of their lives, their immune systems are going to be depressed. So you need to get out. You need to do stuff. You need to walk, even if it's for a few minutes. But they say 30 minutes a day, doing something, moving outside, getting outside. There's a huge factor. There's a huge factor of what's going on there. Being outdoors and being active were both related to greater self-reported physical function, less fear of falling, and fewer depressive symptoms. Again, how many people have been sitting around and getting anxious, being depressed, being afraid of the things that are there? We need to start looking at those things and looking at things in a different way. This should, if anything, help you think outside of the box. One of the biggest factors that we have to look at is we have to start thinking outside the box with all the stuff that's going in. And we have to start looking at the way we've been leading our lives. These are the things that you have to address and question and say to yourself, do you realize that they're saying that one of the number one factors of comorbidity is obesity? You get people outside and moving around, maybe we won't have that as much. Obesity. Okay, that is one of the number one factors in people not being able to breathe and do the things of that nature. Okay, and they're saying that's one of the cofactors of the coronavirus and when people are having trouble. You know, the other factor is I've been hearing recently. There have been a couple of people that I know that the minute they went into the hospital, they gave them a respirator. And they've actually been taking them off the respirators because what's happening is they're not teaching the people how to breathe. And I've mentioned this in some of my other workshops, but what's happening is their lungs aren't breathing on their own, so they're losing that reflex. They're not understanding the neurology, okay? And what happens is you start getting acidotic if you're not breathing properly. It affects brain function. I mean, all of this stuff it makes sense. Even the testing for the COVID-19 or the coronavirus is not absolute. They don't even know because it can mimic other things. I mean, the studies are out there. You guys have to look at this stuff because these numbers are drastically skewed because the numbers aren't reported exact. And they're starting to do studies on that stuff. And they're starting to find out some of that stuff. So those are the things I say with an open mind. Okay, but make sure that you get out. You know, when you get outside and you're doing stuff, this is when people start hurting themselves. They do too much. They'll walk, I mean, like I did 18 miles the other day. My legs are hurting. But I've in the past done century rides, meaning 100-mile bike rides. So going out and riding 18 miles and doing it at an even pace that I'm aware of that's not going to hurt me and I'm not pushing so hard, I can do those things because my body is accustomed to riding on a bicycle for that long. It's accustomed to being on the bicycle. But even then, my knees were hurting, and my knees were hurting before, but it helped to strengthen the muscles around them. So you have to be careful that you're stretching, that you're taking deep breaths, and be aware that if you're going to do some running or pushing a little harder, that you're going to be breathing in allergens now. You're going to be breathing in, we talked about asthma and allergy last week. You're going to be breathing that stuff in. It's going to affect your chest. I told my wife, I came home after my ride, and not unusual for me after a ride. Being a former asthmatic or someone that doesn't really struggle with my asthma, I haven't had problems with it. But every time I go on something and I've pushed my lungs a little too far, I have to go through my breathing techniques just to make sure that my lungs are functioning at a better level. I feel fine today. But that day when I got home, I went into the shower, did my breathing exercises, and my lungs felt fine. But if you push yourself hard, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. So make sure that you, if you are going to go in and get checked and make sure that you don't have something going on, that you really are struggling with the symptoms, because they're going to say that you'll have it even before they do a test now, and actually verify it. You know, they're just, oh, you have the symptoms, go home and quarantine yourself. Oh, go home, that you probably have a coronavirus. That's not the way science works. Okay, and so there's a lot of things that right now there's a lot of questions about how the vaccines work and how and what they use as constituents to inflame the body so it works better. I mean, there's so many factors that you have to look at. That's not an end all be all. That's not the end all be all is you. Are you doing the things that boost your immune function? And this is one of them: being outside. Being outside, getting vitamin D. You know, obviously it's raining today as I'm talking about this, but even in the rain, you know, I was watching Singing in the Rain the other day. What a great movie. And the guy's outside and he's whipping his umbrella around and he's singing in the rain. He's just happy, okay, because he's in love, okay? And the question is, what are you in love with? Is it going to keep you, is the rain going to make you feel miserable and you're going to sit in your bed and you're going to say, oh, you know, I just want to roll up and be with my blanket and I don't want to go out? Or are you going to get up and say, you know what, I should go take a walk. I'll put on a pair of nice boots, pants, a jacket to stay dry, maybe an umbrella, and take a 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk. It will make a huge difference in the way your body responds. It really is important, because rain or shine, you should be doing something. Okay? One study, the relationship between outdoor activity and health in older adults, still. One study that employed accelerometers, which are things to measure how you walk and how many steps you take, and self-reported activity location, found that older adults who exercise outdoors exercise for longer periods of time. If older adults spent more time outdoors, they may be more active and benefit from a healthy dose of vitamin D. So why is that important? Vitamin D is an immune supplement that most people will take. It's an antioxidant, and vitamin D has been shown with many, many benefits. I can go on for hours about vitamin D and the benefits that they found with it, but one is that it helps to boost immune function. So there's a combination of things that's going on here. And even when it's raining outside, you're not getting a lot of sun, but you're still getting daylight if you're out during the day. And that's important. That's an important aspect to understand. Vitamin D is related to a lot of chronic conditions, including cancer, heart disease, and bone health. So it is important to get that, to go outside. And why is it that when we go outside and we cycle outside, like, for example, I'll give you an example. I went out and I did my cycling. I was out there for over an hour, you know. I took my time, like I said. I was out there over an hour. I get on my trainer in my basement. Being on my trainer in my basement for an hour is a struggle. I tell you, I can do it, but it's, you know, like, hey, you know what? This is getting boring. But when you're outside, you're enjoying the air. You're not really paying attention to just having to pedal. You're looking around you. You're paying attention to the road. There's a huge difference. So you have a tendency when you're out to be out longer doing stuff. You know, yard work. A lot of people are doing yard work now. Again, you got to make sure you warm up those muscles before you do those things. Vitamin D levels will go up. And epidemiological studies, which are the studies they're doing now to try to figure out the course of the COVID virus. What they do is they look back at history of the way it's tracked and everything, and then they put everything together. So that's in a nutshell what an epidemiological study is. If you want to look at it more intensely, just look it up on the words. Epidemiological studies are suggesting It may have a protective effect against everything from osteoporosis to cancer to depression to heart attacks and stroke. So why wouldn't you want to be outside getting some sunshine? Studies are showing it. You'll get more exercise as a child if you're outside. I don't know about you guys. When I grew up, though, my parents used to kick me out of the house and say, go play. We weren't allowed to sit in front of the TV. We didn't have phones, that was for sure. We didn't have phones, and we just ran around like maniacs, throwing mud at each other, playing in the rain. It didn't matter. Playing tag, tackling each other, it was just... we were kids. We played. We went out. We played ball. We did stuff. And it definitely makes a difference. And growing up, like I said, I was an asthmatic. And I used to have, but I tell you, when I used to run around, sometimes my asthma would kick in, but I would learn how to breathe and I wouldn't have the attack. And I was able to help learn how to control it. Okay? So it's important to understand that they found that children were more than doubly active when they were outside. They tracked the activity of about 1,000 kids, and they found when they were outside and more active than they were if they stayed indoors. Makes sense. If you're sitting around on a computer, or you're sitting around on a cell phone, or you're sitting around, you got being outside, you don't really have much choice but to be active. Okay, so get out of the house. Okay, if you don't get out of the house and you sit in your house and you sequester yourself, more likely to get depressed, more likely to fall into a stupor, more likely to get anxious, more likely to, it's a cycle. It really is. So you really need to look at that. And they would, on the last slide, I was talking about vitamin D's, vitamin D's positivity and effects, and one of those is psychological. Okay, and they say that it helps with some of those stuff in some of those studies. But just look at your friends that have SAD, SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. When you have less light, people get sort of depressed and they sit around. What do? They tell you to take vitamin D. That's part of the reason why they do that. You'll be happier if your exercise is green. So just like I was telling you, being outdoors, riding my bicycle, as opposed to in my basement doing a trainer, there's a huge difference. Light tends to elevate people's moods, and just 5 minutes of green exercise resulted in improvements in self-esteem and mood. 5 minutes, just being outside for 5 minutes in the grass, whatever it may be. Obviously, you have to look at allergies and stuff. Growing up, I couldn't even go in. When I went to the woods, I would get, if I got pine on me or pitch or something on me, I used to swell up. That doesn't happen anymore, but it was very interesting that I don't have that problem anymore. Concentration will improve. Who is this important for? Everybody. But they did a study with ADHD kids, and they scored their concentration levels after a walk through the park, and they found, and it was just a residential neighborhood, so they did a test of concentration after a walk through a park, then after a walk through the residential neighborhood or a downtown area, and they found that ADHD studies showed that the outdoor exercise had a positive effect on their condition. So in reading this to you guys, okay, and looking at it, what it comes down to, outdoor exercise could have positive effects on the condition. My parents used to kick me out of the house all the time because I used to drive them nuts, because I was a very active kid. Growing up nowadays, I don't know what would have happened, because they probably wouldn't have kicked me out because of fear. And that's a lot of the big things now. Fear. People don't want their kids outside. They're scared something's going to happen. Well, that's why we used to be in groups, and groups of kids. I mean, we used to be 5, 6 of us, and we would protect each other, and we'd be together. We weren't a gang, but but people are less likely to go into groups of kids and do something if they're together, playing together, protecting each other, and not separating themselves and being alone. So it's important that we get together this time, especially after all of this there's a release for allowing people to get back into the workforce and everything else. But more importantly is that You have to stay connected. Yes, unfortunately, a lot of that is virtually now, but you have to stay connected, because if you don't stay connected, I just did a seminar this weekend, and man, can I tell you, it was one of the best seminars. We were all virtually there. There was 150 of us on the Zoom call. It was phenomenal. It was great, but there's something missing when I'm not there seeing these people. But there was a lot of interaction. So that's important to understand. In University of Pittsburgh study, researchers reported in 2005, okay, that spinal surgery patients experienced less pain and stress and took fewer pain medications during their recoveries if they were exposed to natural light. Again, being outdoors, you heal faster, okay? In this day and age, with all the stuff that's going on, don't you want your body to react better and adapt better? Get out. Go do something. Don't be sitting, not doing anything. You know, have some interaction with some people. I had someone come into the office today and they said, "This is the most interaction I've had in 2 weeks." And you could see it on their face that they were happy to just have the interaction with other human beings. We are social animals, okay? And we are an ecosystem amongst ourselves. Our body has 70 trillion cells. It's an ecosystem that has to be taken care of. Look at what's happening with all of the humans and everybody, you know, sequestering themselves and quarantining themselves. The animals are coming back out because they're not afraid to come back into the ecosystem. What have we done to our ecosystems, both outside and inside? It's that safety pin cycle I always talk about. You got to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself and take care of the ecosystem inside, how are you going to take care of the ecosystem outside? We need to make sure that when we come out of this and that we are, as a pandemic, coming towards the latter ends of it, that we have respect for the earth. Tomorrow is Earth Day. Think about what you're doing to the earth when you come out of this, but more importantly, think about what you're doing to your own ecosystem, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of what's out there. Thank you very much. You guys have a great, great day, and I will talk to you soon.